Hello, Grumpy Old Fart here. Um, I I mentioned a religious site called Gobekli Tepe in several other videos, and people have asked me what I mean by that because they don't know, and so here we go. We're gonna do ancient megalithic structures, Gobekli Tepe. Um, this is one of those sites that just boggles the mind. And I mentioned this in those other videos. It pushes the dawn of man back another 5,000 years, at least. 5, 6, 7,000, whatever. Excuse me. A little bit of history. Back in 1994, a farmer was plowing his field, and he found these stones sticking up out of the ground. He tried to dig them out, and found out that they're bigger than he thought they were. So he starts telling local people, and they call in some archaeologists, and they find this site, Gobekli Tepe. Now, apparently they knew about it for some time, but they didn't think it was, they thought it was just an old campsite or something. I'm not sure what they thought, but they weren't excavating it. And then this farmer finding these huge stones kind of perked their interest, so now they're excavating it. They got ground penetrating radar. They're doing the whole 9 yards of this thing because, let me explain about this. Gobekli Tepe in Turkish means, it's found in southern Turkey, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. It means potbelly hill. Excuse me. It is 11,600 years old. It predates Stonehenge by 6,500 years. It predates the pyramids of Giza by 7,100 years. So it makes the Egyptians look like young farts, as it were. It's 50 times bigger than Stonehenge. This is a massive religious complex with multiple stone circles, the whole 9 yards. When I hear stone circles for religious, a religious site for stone circles, I think of Chaco Canyon, but that's because it's New Mexico. But this is much older than that, apparently, much older. This site, Gobekli Tepe, is perfectly aligned to north-south. Perfectly aligned. And on the stones, these massive stones, there are carved reliefs of animals from across the world. Not just in that area, but from across the world. And when I mean reliefs, I don't mean somebody got in there and carved an animal symbol into the stone. I'm talking the stone's there, and there's a raised relief of an animal. And they're pretty good carvings. I mean, this is some advanced stonework going on here. Okay? Now, people say, well, I don't understand what the problem with that is. People have religion. People are, okay. So let's discuss the people who made this. According to mainstream science and mainstream archaeology, the people who did this were hunter-gatherers. They had no formal, there were no cities. There were no social structures, per se, no advanced social structures. So, let's discuss this in a little bit in depth here. These hunter-gatherers gathered and organized a massive labor force. So when you're talking about, if you have 1,000 people working on something, you have to have more than 1,000 people supporting them, logistics, delivering food, delivering water, that kind of thing. So, supporting them, cutting the stones, that kind of thing. Moving the stones. They cut and quarried stones with precision. This massive labor force did this. And so far we're teetering on the edge, but it's not too bad. They had to move these stones, some of which weigh up to 50 tons, and they moved them for many miles to get them in this spot. They had to create these monolithic stone circles in an area with no water. Geologists have stated there's not been any water in that area for a long time. The only way that there's a farmer there is they've irrigated, So at the time, there was no water there. So this religious site, this massive religious site, existed in a place with no water. And in order to feed this massive workforce, this is my favorite one. These people had to invent agriculture in order to do this. Because at the time they didn't have agriculture. And hunter-gatherers wouldn't have supported a workforce that size. If you're a hunter-gatherer, you're feeding yourself. That's about it. So these people had to invent agriculture. Then they had to find a way to get water to these people. Anybody who's ever hauled water, water weighs a lot. Milk, I think it's, what, 7 pounds per gallon. Water is going to be about the same. So you're taught maybe, in that range. And a person drinks several gallons of water a day. It's, especially in a hot climate like Turkey, where there is no water, you got to haul this water. Not only, keep in mind, you're not only hauling the water for the people working, you're hauling the water for the people who are hauling the water. And, they had beasts of burden, so you got to get them water too. That's a lot of water. Okay? That's a massive, massive undertaking. Lots of people involved in this. Lots of animals. And if they didn't have beasts of burden, it makes it even worse. Because you got people hauling water. Clay pots or whatever. I'm just saying. And here's the worst part. They did all this without written language. They did not have written language at the time. So all orders were verbal. And, you do this, you do that kind of thing. As opposed to, we're going to make a list of stuff we got to get done, fellas, and here's what we're doing. Everybody take a task and go. No, there was no written language. All right. Gobekli Tepe is a massive religious site. It was in use for upwards of 2,000 years. Up to 2,000 years. And it was a massive religious site, multiple temples, all involved in it. Like I said, 50 times bigger than Stonehenge. And it was carefully, when they were done with it, they carefully covered it in with dirt to preserve the site. These hunter-gatherers did that. Okay? This is not willy-nilly. There was carefully done, carefully preserved. That's why it's in such great shape. To date, archaeologists have excavated about 2% of this site. And every time they find something new, it's just amazing. This site pushes the dawn of man on this planet back at least 5,000 years. And archaeologists are baffled. They have no clue. Why? Because their paradigm of what they've been teaching for decades, this is so far outside it, they have no clue what they have no idea. I keep saying it, and I'll say it again. When scientists tell you they know everything, take a step back, because they don't. Them science books keep updating, and it's ridiculous what they don't know. My opinion now, we have 3 possibilities. 1, our ancestors were much more advanced than what we're told. These people that did this, according to mainstream science, were hunter-gatherers without agriculture, without the written language. Little clans running around trying to find food and survive. Well, those people could not have built this. So either we were more advanced than what the scientists believe, or our ancestors had help. And like I said, maybe there was an advanced culture that did it and then disappeared. Somehow, some cataclysm or whatever. I don't know. Maybe there was aliens. I don't know. But somehow or other, this site got built. And if it wasn't the hunter-gatherers that the scientists claimed they were, who was it? The third option is someone else completely built Gobekli Tepe and then just left it there. Which raises the question, who? If it wasn't humans, it had to be somebody else. At this point, the Navy has announced that UFOs are indeed real. If that's the case, maybe our ancestors were visited, like Eric von Daniken said. Who knows? Again, 11,600 years, we don't know what was going on back then. The fact that this exists and scientists are baffled tells you they don't know what happened back then. There's bumfuzzled as we are. My point is, this is something that can't be explained, yet it needs to be explained. Our origins, our history is important, because if we don't know where we came from, who are we? You folks have a good day. God bless one and all.